All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Middle Tech's Friday update. Hope everyone has had a great week so far. Got a beautiful Friday morning to enjoy today. So to go ahead and dive into this week in tech history, kind of a not so good fact. The first ever spam email was sent out in 1983. Um, and now 14.5 billion spam emails are sent out each day. So kind of triggered something that is, not so exciting for this week in tech history, but felt it was worth mentioning anyway. So let's get Nate and Evan in here, and then we'll dive into some stories around the streaming wars, and also one that has to do with Kentucky and medical marijuana. Welcome, Nate. Good morning.
What's up? Morning. 14.5 billion spam emails a day is astonishing.
I mean, does that surprise you though? Like, how full is your spam inbox in your email?
Actually, I check it probably once every couple weeks, and maybe I get one per day.
Mm.
So 14.5 does seem really high, but maybe I'm just being safe with my email address and not giving it out to bad people.
If I were to go back to the email I used during like high school and look at that, I'm sure it would be nothing but spam at this point because that was back before I
Yeah.
even knew the implications of just signing up for everything. So it was just everywhere. Just toss the email out to any site that asked for it.
Yeah, that's true. I definitely did act very different back then, so that could be different.
Yeah.
I had to drop
Um,
that. That my old email address was Nate the Great, so I dropped that one when I got professional.
if we want to start going over old email addresses, I had two good ones. I had Jones Dirt Biker at yahoo.com when I was big into dirt bikes, and then I had when I grew up a little bit, but UK had just hit 2,000 wins. I had uk2k.lj, which I thought was pretty badass. So I'm not too ashamed of that one, really.
I think that's pretty stupid.
What was yours?
Just probably something like Evan Knowles, Evan
Sure.
EK42.
Yeah.
That
That's
shows
just
your
my
that shows your creativity. Just
Went out of the
E
womb.
Eno42 was my childhood email.
no creativity as a
Yeah.
child, obviously. All right,
Professional from day one, closing
Yeah,
deals from
from
day
day
one.
one.
Nate, you want to go over our sponsors real quick before we dive in here?
Yeah, two good sponsors today. So again, thank you to our sponsors, Kentucky Innovation, KY Innovation, the state's innovation agency, doing some really great stuff in the state. They partnered with us for the entire season, the entire year. So we're really thankful to them for making Middle Tech possible, along with a bunch of other great resources for entrepreneurs, innovators in this. And then Render Capital. Render Capital is based in Louisville. Applications are currently open for their render competition where they're investing $100,000 into I believe it's eight early stage startups. And I think applications close at the end of next week for that one. So start getting that together if you're interested. Render.capital/competition.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and dive into these stories. The first of which is some news out of the streaming world. The streaming wars are, we're seeing some pullback in terms of streaming growth. So the first story that we want to cover here has to do with Netflix. So if you follow the stock market, I'm sure you've seen the big plunge that the Netflix stock took. So Nate, why don't you give us a rundown on what's going on over at Netflix and what they're seeing with their user numbers right now?
Yeah, so Netflix on their earnings this week, and they lost 200,000 subscribers in the first quarter of 2022, which that number, pretty much that number, caused the stock to plummet 35% on Wednesday, which is 50 billion in market cap, which is gone immediately. And that 35% decline was after the stock had already dropped more than 40% year to date. So a pullback is definitely a good way to phrase this. My take on this, like, a yeah, we kind of would expect a pullback in streaming. The world's opening back up. People are getting back out there. But there's also more competition, and we've talked about the streaming wars here. I want to ask both of you guys a question. Is there any show that's on Netflix that you know of that is must see TV in the past 3 4 months?
For me, I don't watch enough TV. I will tell you this. I was so upset when they took The Office off of Netflix that that was almost
Yeah.
enough for me to cancel my subscription. But I don't watch enough TV to really care. So, Evan, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not watching a whole lot of TV, but I mean, I still use my parents. So part of the problem
There
with
you go. Yeah.
is password sharing. We could talk about that for a bit, but I do that. So I don't watch a whole lot of Netflix to justify buying it for myself, but every once in a while I watch something and I just use my parents.
Yeah, I do. I password share with my parents as well. I'm a big TV person, and pretty much, with the exception of Ozark, really, all of the like must-see TV that's come out in the past 6 months has been HBO or even Apple TV. Netflix is just some of their programming is not keeping up to par with what these other services that are trying to gain subscribers have been putting out. Um, and when you couple increased competition, good competition, with people watching less TV overall than they were 2 years ago, you're going to be in a situation like this. So Evan, you mentioned password sharing as one way they're trying to, get more subscribers in the door. Talk about some of the other stuff they're doing.
Yeah. So, password sharing, big deal. A lot of people are doing it. So they're trying to address that. Not sure how they're going to do it yet. But some of the other things that they are talking about introducing are ads. So Hulu, several of the other platforms do this, but if you want to have a cheaper tier, where maybe it's $5 a month or something like that, it just has ads in it, and you can't skip them. So really, it's just a way for Netflix to diversify their revenue between streaming and ads, because a large portion of their viewers who might be password sharing or might not purchase the platform because it's not something that they can afford might buy it if it's way cheaper with ads. Hulu has had a lot of success with that, so Netflix is considering that as well. But the difference between Hulu and Netflix is Hulu kind of set that precedent from day one. They've got more TV scheduled shows. The cadence of those TV shows supports ads way better than what Netflix does. They're very much long form TV shows that they're not working with traditional studios and TV studios and traditional studios are much more prone to programming television shows with advertising slots in them. But Netflix doesn't do that. So it would be interesting to see like when you would get a Netflix ad in the middle of
Yeah.
a show. I can't really picture it yet, but that's another route they're thinking of going.
What I think is interesting, just kind of on the macro here about streaming wars in general, and it's essentially a battle for people's attention. And when you think of all the different things that a service like Netflix is competing with, things like TikTok and social media, Nate, I think you even called out one time competing with sleep. Like
Yeah.
Netflix considers sleep a competitor, which I think is really interesting. It's just like how large is this share of attention that you can actually capture before it's just like there's only so far that you can take it in my head. I'm sure that there's still a lot of growth to be had there, but I think it's an interesting conversation to have either way about just competing for people's attention as ruthlessly as these streaming platforms are.
Yeah, and another thing obviously is gaming is a big source of entertainment. Netflix is trying to get into that, but video games are getting better and better. The metaverse is coming. TikTok is blowing up. Like all these things, entertainment in general is increasing. There's more options than ever before. Um,
I bet you,
Net-
I bet you,
so,
TikTok is the biggest competitor to Netflix these days, and TV in
yeah,
general.
Yeah,
I
I would
guarantee.
say
And
you're
yeah,
then
right.
Netflix, or Joe Pro brought up a good point that Netflix has raised their prices recently as well to combat some of this, I'm sure, and boost the revenue numbers. So, they're having to do a lot. They're one of the largest shareholders just dipped out too. So they're in a tough spot.
yeah.
We'll see if they can recover.
I saw a stat. I forgot where I saw it this week after Netflix went down, but it was talking about television watching in general, regardless of platform or even linear TV. The average, I don't want to say Gen Z because it was like teenager, not necessarily just Gen Z, but the average teenager spends more time on TikTok than any type of television and all of Facebook combined.
Oh my
Yep.
So,
gosh.
yeah, attention share, that's where
Yep.
it's going for them.
Jeez.
Yep.
Wild.
All right.
Well, let's move on to this next story, and this is just kind of covering some not necessarily news, but just talk that's going on around medical marijuana in Kentucky. So, Evan, you sent us this news story yesterday, and we started kind of chatting about it in a group message. Give us your thoughts on what's going on here and where you hope to see this go into the future.
Yeah, I mean, Andy Brashear announced on Thursday, I think it was, so that was yesterday, that he wants to kind of take more action towards modernizing, our stance on marijuana and he wants to start with medical marijuana. So he is really disappointed that our representatives here in Kentucky are not, putting a vote to medical marijuana, and they're not even bringing it really to fruition or allowing it to have the opportunity to become legal in a medical sense. So he's considering taking executive action just to legalize it here in Kentucky. But before that, he wants to do a few things to make sure that we're prepared for it, and he can listen to Kentucky citizens and see what they want. So he put some steps together that are the following. So, number one, as I mentioned, he's considering doing executive action. So that would be one of the steps if the others turn out to point towards that direction. So he wants to set up a medical cannabis advisory team. He wants to deploy that advisory team throughout the state of Kentucky, go talk to local regions and local city council members and just citizens around Kentucky and see what everybody thinks. And then he wants to allow the public to speak to him. So he created a new email, Gov Medical Cannabis Advisory Team at ky.gov. It's a pretty long
Gotta work
email
on that
there.
one.
I think they could work on some better ways for people to get in touch. They could get some SMS campaigns going. If you want to come talk to the Middletech team and figure out how to talk to Kentucky citizens better, let us know. So really the thing is here, he just wants to create a dialogue around medical marijuana. My opinion on the subject is there's no reason for us not to have at least medical marijuana legalized and decriminalize, medical marijuana in Kentucky or marijuana in general. I think I'd go as far as I'm okay with recreational marijuana. I don't think there's any reason these days to be anti marijuana. I don't think there's any research. There's no public major happenings around marijuana as far as people dying. I'm not sure why Kentucky's so far behind. And actually, Bashir said, and I quote, "We're actually behind Mississippi this time. We can't let that happen." And so he's talking about, it's not something to joke about. He actually came back and said, yeah, we can't joke about that. But he's referring to the fact that, we're ahead of Mississippi, I guess, in obesity. So, I think the time has come. We just need to embrace it. So we just need to figure out, what the best steps are to make it happen. And he's doing that.
I mean, the reason I think we saw that clip from that politician that came online. It was like, well, my constituents are for it, but they can take it out on me in the next election or something. I mean, that was the most infuriating video I think all of us Kentuckians have ever seen. But Nate, I'm interested to get your take on it because you're up in Chicago where it is legal. So just kind of talk about from your perspective, what you think about all of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely legal here, recreational if you're 21. It's a little weird. It's even though it's legal, it's still not as easy to get marijuana as it is alcohol. Obviously, there's no bars or anything in that sense, but there's very limited dispensaries. You have to order online ahead of time and input your ID information. Then you get there and there's a bouncer at the door, and then you're kind of prodded through like cattle to get to the counter. So it's still, there's some kind of stigma around it, but not that hard to get, and it completely legal. There's nobody in the streets high, passed out, all that, it didn't make a difference when it was legalized. I saw no difference in anything really. And obviously, like you said, Evan, the scientific evidence of it being dangerous is not there, never was. There's really no reason. One thing I hear specifically about Kentucky as a reason why they might not want to legalize marijuana, either recreationally or medically, is because of the bourbon industry. Medically, just because it's a slippery slope to recreationally. The bourbon is definitely a major lobby in Kentucky, but I'm not sure if they are pushing it, and if they are, I'm not sure if it makes sense, because what percentage of those distillery sales are actually in the state of Kentucky? It's probably pretty low. So they would have no control over, medical marijuana, recreational, and other markets.
Yeah, I mean, I think another big part of this argument as well is, Kentucky, I think, is considered a really ideal climate for growing marijuana in the first place. I know we're finally to the point where we can grow hemp, but at least in our talks with Lincoln Day, who's on our team, who's kind of an ag tech, he brings up the point of these farmers that are growing tobacco, a lot of them would much rather be growing something that's not causing cancer and undoubtedly a negative if you're using tobacco regularly. So I just don't understand why it's taking Kentucky so long. I guess the simple answer is just our legislators are
Just got a
holding it
bunch of
back. But
bunch of
it's,
dumb old legislation.
the fact that
The
it can't
amount of
even go to a vote is ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, same thing with sports gambling too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Those two issues are just totally ridiculous. The government is really messing up
Yeah.
here locally on those two topics.
But the amount of just like local business growth that legalizing even just medical marijuana would create is astonishing. Like if you go to the dispensary here in Illinois, pretty much every brand is locally grown in Illinois. Corporate offices in Illinois, like they keep it all within the state, and it's just this whole industry that has popped up out of nowhere and created a lot of economic impact on top of the growing, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, economic impact point is good because I mean, if you look at Andy Bashir and what he's done in Kentucky already, I mean, he's got the two biggest economic development projects in Kentucky history with all the batteries. A lot of manufacturing is coming in. If he would also simultaneously, during this term of his, legalize medical marijuana and then eventually get to recreational, I mean, he would be a legend. And when it comes to economic development in the state, so it's something to point out that he's doing a great job when it comes to doing the right thing for what's best for Kentucky and our economic development. So this is, I think, just another big step he can take that would have a massive impact.
Yeah, the timing of the announcement is interesting. A day after 420, you think he tried weed for the first time and then decided that we needed to start down the path.
The next
kidding.
day released initiatives.
I'm kidding. Oh God. Okay. Well, that's good stuff. We'll keep an eye on that. Hopefully, we'll see some progress in that as the governor starts putting more of a focus on it. Nate, do you want to tell us about the weekend thoughts we have coming out tomorrow?
Yeah, Weekend Thoughts is an interesting one this week. It's from one of the new members of our team, Danny. He's really into Web3, AI, and how all of that stuff intersects with art and design and creativity. And so this Weekend Thoughts is about AI art and how artificial intelligence is literally now creating art and what implications that might have.
Awesome. And then on Monday, we have an episode coming out with Lucretia Sewell. She's building a company called Melanated Healthcare that is addressing this problem where people from different ethnic backgrounds want to be matched with doctors who have similar ethnic backgrounds and is having some good success building that platform. So we sat down with her. We'll be releasing that interview on Monday. Other than that, I think that's all we got for you guys. Hope everyone has a great Friday and an awesome weekend, and we'll see you next Friday. See you guys.
See ya.